In 2007, my life changed forever. I had accepted an invitation to join a church group that was doing outreach to women in drugs and prostitution on the streets of Baltimore. So I stepped out of my safe life as an internet consultant in DC and went along just to see what they do. Little did I know that I would meet somebody very special. She was 19, alone, addicted, and walking the streets to make money. I suppose I could have written her off, but something about her drew me in, and we sat on the stoop and talked. I would soon learn that her story was like that of so many girls in America. She grew up pretty normal. Her little girl room was decorated with Tinkerbell, and she had big dreams. But because of certain vulnerabilities in her life, she was easy prey for a smooth-talking man who convinced this child to run away from her small town. He turned from romance to nightmare and trafficked her up and down the I-95 corridor for about 4 years. By then, she was addicted to drugs, estranged from family, and had no education. The list goes on. He dropped her off in the streets of Baltimore, and she blended in with those who are hidden in plain sight. But I couldn't get that encounter out of my mind. I left corporate America, and I started the Samaritan Women, which is still the only long-term residential care program in Maryland for victims of domestic sex trafficking. Over the past 12 years, we have served about 100 young women referred from over 20 states across the country. We have 3 homes, a schoolhouse, and a vocational training enterprise. Many of our survivors end up going to college, and all of our graduates have obtained employment. It's been very gratifying work. But there are so many more victims to be reached with this kind of care. We've identified 17 states with no shelter program and 9 states with only one. Some studies suggest that fewer than 20% of victims have access to services. So if we wonder, why don't they leave? Why don't they reach out for help? In many areas, the kind of help they need is simply not available. So we've created the Institute for Shelter Care and asserted a 5-year goal to train and equip 29 new shelters across the United States to close that gap. We've already trained 4 new shelter programs in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, and Iowa. Between now and 2024, we will continue to share what we have learned to help build up our nation's response. 95% of our women were sexually abused as children. 87% grew up in substance-abusing homes. 70% in fatherless homes, and 48% have been diagnosed with some mental challenge. You may not have had exposure to domestic sex trafficking, but if sexual abuse, addiction, fatherlessness, or mental illness has been part of your personal history or within your family, then you have some idea of how long and hard recovery can be. This is long and patient work. And yet we know that healing is possible. But we first have to close the gap on access to services. So we invite your support to help us ensure that any survivor, anywhere in the nation, would have access to qualified, compassionate care. Thank you for investing in this work. Your sustained monthly giving paves the journey of recovery for these victims. Thank you.